Story 1: The Stalker in the Snow. In the winter of 2020, when the world seemed to collapse under the weight of a global pandemic, I found solace in the wilderness. The suffocating isolation of lockdowns drove most people indoors. But for me, an avid backpacker with a restless spirit, it was the perfect excuse to escape. I craved the silence of untouched landscapes, the kind that could drown out the chaos of my life. My destination was a secluded creek in Rocky Mountain National Park, Colorado, a place where the air was sharp with pine and the ground crunched beneath a thin layer of snow. It was a 3-hour drive from my temporary home, a modest apartment I'd moved into after a scandal in 2019 had upended my world. The trouble began the previous year when a grave mistake at my job, a miscalculation that cost investors millions, tarnished my reputation beyond repair. The fallout was brutal. My name became a curse in certain circles, whispered with venom by those who'd lost fortunes. I received hate mail, threatening calls and texts from unknown numbers that ranged from insults to outright promises of retribution. I changed my phone number, moved apartments, and eventually quit my job, hoping to outrun the storm. For a while it seemed I had. The harassment tapered off, and I dared to believe the world had moved on. But as I would soon learn, some grudges linger like shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. That March, I parked my truck at the trailhead in Rocky Mountain National Park, my breath fogging in the frigid air. The park was eerily empty, a ghost town of snow-dusted pines and silent trails. The lockdown had scared most people away, and the winter chill kept the rest at bay. I hiked for hours, my boots breaking the crust of snow with a satisfying crunch, until I reached the creek. Its waters flowed freely, unfrozen, gurgling softly over smooth stones. The serenity was exactly what I needed, a balm for the wounds of the past year. I set up camp a short distance from the trail, pitching my tent in a small clearing surrounded by towering evergreens. The routine was comforting. I chopped wood, built a fire, and cooked sausages over a portable stove, their savory aroma mingling with the crisp scent of pine. As dusk settled, I lit my headlamp, rolled a joint, and opened a worn paperback, losing myself in its pages. The peace shattered when my phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. I frowned, puzzled. Few people had my new number, only family and a handful of trusted friends. Expecting a check-in from my sister, I pulled out the phone and froze. A string of texts from an unknown number with a 203 area code, Connecticut, far from where I'd ever lived, stared back at me. The messages were chillingly personal. "How's your camping going, buddy? It's beautiful out here. I see why you came up here." My heart thudded against my ribs. The words weren't just invasive. They were intimate, as if the sender was watching me, sharing the same starlit sky. The weed amplified my paranoia, sending my thoughts spiraling. Was this a prank? A family member playing a cruel joke? Or worse, had one of my old enemies tracked me down? I typed a shaky response. "Who is this?" No reply came. I stood, my headlamp casting jittery beams into the darkening woods, scanning for any sign of movement. Nothing but shadows and the faint rustle of wind through the trees. Fear gnawed at me, but I refused to let it win. I retrieved my Sig Sauer P365 from my backpack, its cold weight grounding me. Normally, I'd douse the fire before bed, but the thought of total darkness was unbearable. I crawled into my tent, the gun resting beside me, and stared at the phone, willing it to stay silent. Minutes dragged into an hour. I tried to read, but the words blurred, my mind fixated on the text. To distract myself, I switched to YouTube, watching a true crime documentary. A poor choice in hindsight, given my frayed nerves. Another text arrived, a response to my earlier question. "Doesn't matter anymore." My pulse surged. I fired back. "How did you know I'm camping?" Silence. The fire outside flickered, its glow fading as the wood burned low. In the winter stillness, the absence of insects made every sound sharper, more ominous. When the documentary paused, the silence was suffocating, broken only by the occasional crackle of embers. Then I heard it, the unmistakable crunch of footsteps in the snow. Slow, deliberate, they grew closer, stopping just outside the tent. 6 feet away, maybe less. My grip tightened on the gun, my thumb hovering over the safety. A sudden flash illuminated the tent's fabric, brief but blinding, like a camera or flashlight. My blood ran cold. The footsteps retreated, fading into the distance. And then my phone buzzed again. A photo loaded on the screen, my tent glowing faintly against the dark forest, taken moments ago. Below it, a final text. "Have a good night's sleep." Something in me snapped. The fear gave way to a surge of adrenaline-fueled defiance. I unzipped the tent, stepped into the cold, and fired 2 shots into the air. The cracks echoed through the valley, followed by the frantic crunch of footsteps fleeing through the snow. I screamed a threat into the night, my voice raw with anger. "Come back, and you're done!" The woods fell silent again, but the victory felt hollow. Whoever it was hadn't gone far. I could feel their presence lingering, watching from the shadows. I retreated to the tent, my heart still racing, and stayed awake for hours, the gun never leaving my hand. Exhaustion eventually won, and I drifted into a fitful sleep. When I woke to the pale light of dawn, the world felt different, less hostile. I packed up quickly, scanning the snow for tracks but finding none. The wind had erased any evidence. The drive back was a blur, my mind replaying the night's events. Whoever had followed me, whether a vengeful stranger or a sadistic prankster, had underestimated me. The gun, a purchase I'd made on a whim, had likely saved me from whatever they'd planned. 5 years later, the texts and harassment have stopped, but the memory of that night haunts me still. A reminder that some enemies never forget, and the wilderness, for all its beauty, can hide the darkest of intentions. Story 2. The Scream in the Woods. Every October, my family upheld a cherished tradition, a weekend retreat to my Uncle Jim's sprawling 4-acre property in northern Michigan. The estate, nestled on the edge of a dense county forest, was a haven of rustic charm. The main house, with its 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, comfortably housed our extended clan. My parents, my brother Adam, my sister, our 4 cousins, and their parents. 2 bedrooms were reserved for the kids. Adam, my sister, and I shared one, while our cousins Jake, Joe, Jamie, and Christina took the other. Uncle Jim, a grizzled outdoorsman with a passion for hunting and fishing, was the heart of these gatherings. His stories of wilderness adventures, told over crackling bonfires, captivated us kids, planting seeds of adventure in our young minds. In 2007, I was 13, the eldest of the cousins. Adam and Jake were 10, Joe was 9, and the girls, Jamie and Christina, were around 11. That year, over a boisterous lunch, the boys, Adam, Jake, Joe, and I, hatched a plan to camp in the woods beyond Uncle Jim's property line. The idea sparked when our dads, emboldened by a few beers, swapped hunting tales. We pleaded to experience the wilderness for ourselves, and to our surprise, they agreed. Our mothers were less enthusiastic, their faces etched with worry, but they didn't outright forbid it. Uncle Jim and my dad, chuckling at our enthusiasm, led us into the forest, carrying a large tent and supplies. The woods were a labyrinth of towering oaks and pines, their branches knitting a canopy that filtered the autumn sunlight into a golden haze. Uncle Jim had marked his property line with red paint on the trees, but we ventured beyond, to a clearing carpeted with soft, mossy ground, what he called deer beds. He claimed it was an ideal campsite, one he'd used himself. Under their tipsy supervision, we helped pitch the tent, a spacious canvas structure big enough for the 4 of us. The task was a lesson in teamwork, our small hands fumbling with poles and stakes as our dads offered slurred advice. By late afternoon, the tent stood proud, and we returned to the house to play games and eat dinner. At dinner, our mothers voiced their concerns again, arguing we were too young to be alone in the woods. My dad, ever the joker, quipped that we'd be close enough for them to hear our screams if something went wrong. The comment drew laughs, but a flicker of unease passed through me. As night fell, our dads escorted us back to the tent, flashlights bobbing in the dark. We carried sleeping bags, extra blankets, and a deck of Uno cards to pass the time. Once settled, Uncle Jim and my dad bid us goodnight, their silhouettes fading into the trees. The forest closed around us, its silence profound. We were alone, deeper in the woods than I'd realized, far from the comforting glow of the house. Inside the tent, we arranged our flashlights in a circle, their beams creating a cozy glow. We played Uno, laughing and arguing over wild cards, the game stretching for nearly an hour. The fun halted when a scream pierced the night, a high, chilling wail that sounded like a girl in distress. We froze, eyes wide, staring at one another. Joe, the youngest, looked petrified. I remembered something Uncle Jim had once said about foxes, how their screams mimicked a woman's cry. I shared this, hoping to calm everyone, and it worked, at least for a while. We resumed the game, my victories piling up, the scream fading from our minds. Then it came again, louder, closer, and unmistakably human. The air in the tent grew heavy, our breaths shallow. Joe's face crumpled, on the verge of tears. I whispered for everyone to douse their flashlights, plunging us into darkness. We scrambled to our sleeping bags, huddling in silence, too terrified to move. The thought of running to the house was unbearable. The crunch of our footsteps would surely draw whatever was out there. We whispered theories, clinging to the hope it was still a fox, but doubt gnawed at me. The silence shattered with the sound of rapid footsteps crunching through leaves, charging toward the tent. They stopped abruptly, and then came the scream, ear-splitting, gut-wrenching, right outside the tent. The canvas shook violently, as if someone was trying to tear it down. Panic erupted. Jake and Joe screamed in terror, while Adam and I shouted, "Get out! Leave us alone!" Adrenaline took over. I lunged for the zipper, yanking it open, and we bolted into the night, flashlights swinging wildly. The run back to the house was a blur of fear, our screams echoing through the forest. Every rustle felt like pursuit, every shadow a threat. We burst onto the property, gasping, to find our family already outside, alerted by our cries. We spilled the story, the screams, the shaking tent, and their faces mirrored our horror. I accused our dads of sending one of the girls to prank us, but they let us inside, showing us Jamie, Christina, and my sister fast asleep. The realization hit like a punch. Someone unknown was out there. Our dads grabbed rifles and ventured into the woods, returning empty-handed after an hour. The next day, we retrieved the tent, its fabric undisturbed but heavy with the weight of our fear. That was the last time we camped in those woods. Even playing outside after dark lost its appeal. To this day, we don't know who or what was out there, but the memory of that scream still sends shivers down my spine, a reminder of how close we came to something we couldn't comprehend. Story 3, The Unseen Presence. 2 years ago, my dad and I embarked on a camping trip that would change us forever. We'd always cherished our escapes into the wilderness, moments to disconnect from the grind of daily life and reconnect as father and son. Our destination was a remote campground in the deep country, a place steeped in Native American history where hiking trails wound through ancient forests and zip lines soared over emerald valleys. It was a tourist-friendly spot, but its wild heart pulsed beneath the surface, whispering tales of a time before settlers claimed the land. We arrived on a crisp autumn evening, the campground buzzing with families, their campfires casting a warm glow against the twilight. The first night was idyllic. We grilled hot dogs, roasted marshmallows, and shared beers with fellow campers, their laughter mingling with the crackle of burning logs. It was the kind of night that made you believe in the simple goodness of the world. The second day brought an unexpected twist. The staff informed us that we were the only ones left in the park. Everyone else had checked out. At first, we were thrilled. A private campground felt like a rare gift, a chance to savor the solitude we craved. We spent the day exploring, hiking rugged trails, fishing in a glassy river, and lounging in the sun. To lean into the spooky vibe of the empty park, we listened to a creepy podcast by the river, chuckling at our own bravado. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and violet, we felt content, pleasantly buzzed from a few beers and weary from the day's adventures. We decided to visit the park's information center to charge our phones and grab snacks before nightfall. The walk back to our campsite was when the world shifted. The forest, so inviting by day, took on an oppressive weight. The air grew thick, the sky tinged with an unnatural twilight that lingered too long. My dad, usually unflappable, turned to me, his brow furrowed. "Doesn't this feel off? Like we're in a dream?" I nodded, my chest tightening. The woods stretched endlessly in every direction, their shadows deepening with each step. We didn't speak much, our eyes darting to the trees, half expecting to see something watching us. Back at camp, we clung to routine, building a fire and roasting marshmallows, but the unease lingered, a silent agreement to pretend everything was fine. We played music, smoked weed, and tried to laugh, but the forest silence pressed against us, unbroken by the usual chorus of crickets. Around 9 p.m., as we sat by the fire, a deafening bang shattered the stillness, like a tree collapsing under its own weight. It came from the river, maybe 100 yards away, its echo reverberating through the valley. We grabbed our flashlights, their beams slicing through the dark, but saw nothing. No movement, no glinting eyes. "Bigfoot?" I joked, my laugh brittle. My dad forced a smile, but his eyes were wary. Minutes later, another bang, louder from a different direction. We scanned the woods again, the flashlights revealing only the skeletal outlines of trees. A third bang, closer now, sent a jolt of fear through me. Whatever it was moving toward us, circling the campsite with purpose. Before we could process it, a fourth bang erupted, no more than 20 yards away. The sound was visceral, shaking the ground beneath us. My dad's face, illuminated by the firelight, was a mask of dread. "Into the tent," he whispered, his voice tight. We threw the last of the firewood onto the flames, hoping the blaze would deter whatever was out there, and scrambled inside. I dropped to the floor, lying flat, my heart pounding. My dad followed slower, pausing at the entrance. As he ducked inside, the loudest bang yet exploded, so close it felt like the earth itself had cracked. He froze, staring into the darkness, his breath hitching. "Dad," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "It's standing there," he muttered, his eyes wide with terror. "A wall of darkness." "What's standing there?" I pressed, my voice trembling. "I don't know," he said, his hands shaking as he zipped the tent shut. He clutched our only weapon, a small camping knife, pitiful against whatever lurked outside. We sat in silence, the fire's glow fading through the canvas. Then came a new sound, a low vibration that wasn't just heard but felt, like a pressure in our chests. It grew into a hum, alien and oppressive, tightening our lungs. "You hear that?" my dad whispered. I nodded, too scared to speak, convinced we were being hunted. The hum gave way to a sound I'll never forget, a guttural, otherworldly noise. Neither animal nor human, like something torn from a nightmare. It reminded me of the Demogorgon from Stranger Things, but far more real, more malevolent. We froze, barely breathing, as the sound circled the tent. I lay near a mesh window, but couldn't bring myself to look out, terrified of meeting whatever eyes might be staring back. My dad sat by the zipper, knife in hand, his face etched with resolve. And then, impossibly, we blacked out. When I woke, I was on my back, a wave of panic crashing over me, as if something had been looming above me. My dad was sprawled beside me, still gripping the knife. I grabbed my phone to check the time. Dead. His was too, despite being fully charged hours earlier. We stepped outside, the air cold and still, the fire reduced to ash. The food we'd left on the table was untouched, the campsite eerily pristine. The darkness felt wrong, like we'd trespassed into a place we didn't belong. We waited out the night in the tent, sleepless, speaking only in whispers. At dawn, we packed up in silence, the weight of the night pressing on us. In the car, we finally talked, realizing we'd felt the same thing, watched, hunted, targeted by something beyond comprehension. When we told my mom, she dismissed it as a hallucination, maybe from tainted weed or a gas leak, but we knew better. What we experienced was real, shared in every detail. My dad saw something that night, a shape, a presence that wasn't human. We've never returned to that campground, nor have we camped since. The memory lingers, a scar on our souls. And though we search for answers, the truth remains out there, hidden in the dark heart of the wilderness.